Nomadic tribes of Cumans, or otherwise called Kipchaks, emerged in the end of the 11th century, and by the end of the 13th century, the majority of the western Eurasian steppe was under their control, called Deshti Kipchak, meaning the steppe of the Kipchaks. The Cuman clans, however, never really united under one Khan, and so their political power was swiped by the other nomadic nation that did so, the Mongols. After the first major victory at the Battle of Kalka, the Cumans were considered subjects by the Mongols. Part of the Cumans resisted the Mongols, part of them submitted, and one part under Khan Khoten decided to try their luck by migrating west, in this case the Kingdom of Hungary. Their initial settlement in the center of the country was deprecated by both the nobles opposing the king and the local population. The anti-Cuman moods escalated on the eve of the Mongol invasion of Hungary. House in Pest, where Khan Khoten was internated, was attacked and he was murdered with the whole family. When the news reached the rest of his people, the Mongols were already in the kingdom. The Cumans, filled with rage, left Hungary towards the southeast, to Bulgaria, pillaging and burning on their way. After the Mongols left Hungary in 1242, the king Bela IV called the Cuman back, settling them more scattered than before. He married his son Stefan with the noble Cuman girl that was given name Elizabeth by her baptism and gave the Cumans specific rights, making them a unique social group that was basically independent of anyone but the king. From this time, the Cumans left their trace in the history of the region, fighting under the Hungarian forces in many wars, with the heyday being during the son of Cumaness Elizabeth, King Ladislaus IV, who preferred nomadic adventurous way of life over the ruling in the Western fashion. He was excommunicated by the Pope and bore the name of Ladislaus the Cuman. His elite retinue, called Nyagers, consisted of Cumans and possibly their eastern neighbors, Tatars. Cumans are not known, however, only from the historical sources. Archaeological remains from the territory of Hungarian Kingdom and its surroundings speaks a lot about the Cuman way of life, their weapons and armor they used. Most of the finds comes from the territory between Danube and Tisa rivers, both noblemen as well as commoner graves. There are 3 graves of Cuman noblemen or beys that stand out of the rest, found in Csengele, Csolyos and Tomasevac. Among other finds, they contain a specific type of helmets with visor and image of eyes above them. Bey of Csengele was buried with his horse with full equipment and arms and armor, ready for war in the afterlife. His helmet is the best preserved specimen of this type in Hungary, still including the remains of chain aventile and clearly visible plastic motif of eyes and eyebrows. By his feet lie the chainmail armor. Very interesting are remains of fabric on the neck part. It is possible that the whole armor was sewn in textile, similar to some finds from the territory of the so-called Golden Horde. His quiver was filled with arrows. Iron arrowheads of different forms succumbed mostly to the rust. One needle-shaped arrowhead made of bone was well preserved. The whole find situation is unique. The Cumans settled at the village destroyed by Mongols and continued to use its cemetery next to the church. However, according to the burial rite, the grave was obviously pagan. Second rich grave was found in Csolyos at the beginning of the 20th century. The buried Cuman had a helmet with plastic eye ornament and probably a visor. His armor was adorned by 2 very unique metal plates that protected his shoulders or maybe knees. Four iron arrowheads with different shapes were stored in his quiver. A whole set was tied with a belt with richly ornamented fittings with vegetable motif. Third grave was found in Tomasevac. The excavation report is missing, but the inventory remains. It also had a helmet with visor and eyes above it. Bey of Tomasevac was dressed in a chainmail armor, out of which just few parts remained. part of his iron saber didn't succumb to the rust and time. And once again, belt with richly adorned fittings was found, the same like in Csolyos. One of the best analogies for the helmets with visor and plastic eyes was found in Ploskoe, in nowadays Republic of Moldavia, in the territory of the so-called Golden Horde. Another was found on the mountain plateau of Ozana near the village of Jasenovo in the northern Bulgaria. Origin of the helmets with visor and the eyes can be found in the Far East Asia, in the region of the Jurchen people. It was brought to the Eastern Europe by the Mongols. Unique helmet of definitely Eastern steppe origin was dug out of Danube in the city of Budapest. It had engravings of mythological birds of prey, or phoenixes, or sea marks. Closest analogy for this helmet was found in Central Asia, in the Novosibirsk region of today's Russia. As we have seen, the richest Cumans were wearing chainmail armor. However, the common soldier couldn't afford such a luxury, and they were protecting themselves by layers of textile, wool, or maybe leather. We have no remains of shields of Cumans from the territory of Hungary. It is possible that shield wasn't used, as it wasn't fitting the steppe warfare. Most typical closed combat weapon for rich Cumans was the saber. It is found in iconography but also in graves around Hungary. Well-preserved specimen of saber was found in an equestrian grave in Kiskunmaisa. Close analogy was found in a Shumen region in northern Bulgaria. It included golden-coated and engraved ricasso. Similar sabers are known also from the territory of the so-called Golden Horde. Another melee weapon commonly associated with the Cumans was mace. The knobbed bronze versions came to Hungary probably with the arrival of Cumans, but also maybe earlier with the Pechenegs. The mace of this type are common in the territory of Ukraine, also in the steppe region. There is no find of mace in the grave to certainly prove this theory, however it seems plausible. It is possible to assume that the Hungarian Cumans also used spears, even though there are no spearheads found in graves. There are however commonly found in the Cuman kurgans in the steppe region. They bore a narrow O-shaped blade suitable for penetrating the chainmail armor. For sure, most typical weapon for the Cuman was the bow. Most probably they used a reflex composite bow similar to the one used by the Mongols. Unfortunately, unlike from the previous periods, there are no rigid bone or antler parts found in the graves. The bow was stored in a typical transport case made of leather. Arrows were stored in a quiver. Typical hourglass-shaped quiver of the Cumans resembles the specimen from the Golden Horde. It is commonly depicted on the paintings and frescoes. It could have been decorated by the bone application with carved ornaments similar to those found in the steppe and also in the medieval Bulgaria. Arrows were stored in a typical steppe fashion with arrowheads pointing up, and they were protected by a closable lid. They used various types of arrowheads, usually made of iron but sometimes of bone. Unfortunately, it is very hard to differentiate those used by Cumans from those used by Mongols, if they are found only in the archaeological layer. This was the short overview of weapons and armor used by the Cumans in the medieval Kingdom of Hungary. Thank you for the attention. Next time, about horses and their attire.